Welcome to the Hustler's Handbook podcast. I'm Easton. In this show, we explore the stories of relentless go-getters, uncovering the secrets behind their success. We talk life, work, and everything in between. The highs, the lows, and the grit it takes to keep pushing forward. Tune in and get inspired right here on the Hustler's Handbook podcast. Hello, and welcome to the Hustler's Handbook podcast. I'm your host, Easton Johnson. Today's guest is Ishmael Stinson, aka Ish. Ish is the president at Studio 143, a multi-purpose studio with culture and community at the forefront. Welcome to the show, Ish.
Hey, appreciate you, Easton, man. I'm just happy to be here, man. I know when you first came with this idea, you had hit me, and I thought that, hey, this sounds dope. Just laying down those gems, as we like to say. I'm just honored just to be here.
Thank you. So can you just tell us a little bit about your background and what you do?
For sure, man. I was trying to break it down to you in the pre-interview, man. I'm president Studio 143. That's like kind of like a brainchild of me and my homegirl Katarina. We came up with that in 2018, I believe. But I'm also, in my own right, I'm an experienced account specialist. Also been lucky enough to be a producer. And still got a day job 9 to 5 where I like to hustle as well. So, definitely been a pretty multifaceted being. Definitely in the whole time I known you, you didn't know Dreadhead-ish. That was a whole nother guy, but in the whole time I know you and most of my adult life, definitely feel like I've been pretty multifaceted and I got to keep that going.
For sure. So what inspired you to pursue this career in entrepreneurship? And so what motivated you in that?
Absolutely. So, I mean, mainly for me, it was really about independence. And, I know how we met. We kind of met in the sports world, and I'm definitely, have that intensity when it comes to like sports. But I feel like when it comes to like business, I'm definitely really analytical. And so I just kind of came up with being an entrepreneur just out of like what makes the most sense. I want to be independent. I want to do my own thing. I have these base level of skills, mostly in the like communication realm, and like where can I go from that? So in 2018, I was really in kind of like exploratory place, linked up with another person. I was in the same space, as you know, I was doing a lot of events, doing my own events around that time. And then I just kind of came with the idea to like bring that together and go out and kind of create a business first and foremost, and with the business goal to create like space. We're definitely a long way from our overall like business objective, but it's just another thing that I gotta just take my time, work, build it from the ground up, and I feel like it can definitely bear fruit. But just really just independence, man. I'm really like all about being independent. I'm all about customization, doing your own thing, doing the thing that like is really about you. And I think, you could see that in anybody that has been to any of my events. But anybody's always been that, they kind of knows that independent mindset has always been me, and like that custom authenticity has really been my like calling card. And so I feel like with entrepreneurship, you're able to kind of lead your own way. You're able to kind of design your own future. And that was the main thing that kind of brought me to just in general, if you're talking about just being, the entrepreneur spirit is really about independence.
And so when you started your business, what kind of idea did you have with Studio 143?
So the idea was that I had already been doing shows, but I had been doing all kinds of shows, a variety of things. So I was doing like spoken word, I was doing like art shows, I was going to art shows, I was being featured on different podcasts, I was helping create a couple podcasts. And this is all the stuff that I was doing really kind of freestyling where I wasn't really organizing all these different agendas, but like opportunities were being presented to me and I was just ready to take advantage. And then as I was doing that, I was like, yo, I need to make sure I got my my business license. I need to make sure I got business ID. And then that's really kind of where I started thinking about, all right, so like what do I want to do? What is like adjacent? What is something that is also all encompassing. And so I wanted to kind of go down the studio route. And then it also kind of fulfilled a need that I was running into where, when I was trying to do events, when I was trying to host events, when I was just trying to put people on, it was hard when I didn't have my own space. And when I say like it's hard, it means it's like you're booking, you're dealing with somebody else's time.
Mhm.
I'm saying when you're thinking about the door, like charging fees, you got to split that with somebody, or maybe you have to pay an upfront fee to even get in the door. And that, like, definitely didn't really set me back, didn't stop me from doing anything I wanted to do. But I felt like the potential was there for me to make more out of it and maybe even make a whole career out of just, doing like independent events, projects, and productions.
Now, with all that, did you have a mentor growing up learning how to do all this, or how did you adapt and basically learn the ins and outs of all that?
See, and that's kind of what in 2018 I was already seeding. So, I kind of, my mindset has always been very like formulaic. I know my cousin Marsh, and we got a similar energy like when it comes to sports. But then outside of sports, we have a very like similar analytical kind of mindset. Um, and I feel like, when I was, when you're talking about like, having a mentor, I didn't really have a really like a mentor for specifically what I'm doing now, which is like video production, account specialist on kind of the corporate side, and also just like being an entrepreneur. But I did kind of have my like own family members. I always saw my grandpa doing something. He was big in the community, you know. Not only was he like a preacher in the church, but he also was like a contractor. He also owned homes, and I know the reason why he did that was so anybody come to him for something, he had an answer. Oh, you need some work?
Mhm.
I'm my own independent contractor. I could put you on some work right now. Yeah, I might be a pastor and people might, like obviously I could gain off the church. He didn't really have that mindset. The church was more for the community. But he knew as that in that position, people are going to come to him. And I feel like I spent a lot of time with my grandparents. So I was able just to see that. And then I was just kind of trying to new age formulate it for myself. And so the formula I did was it was started with research. Okay, where's there a niche, but also where does like my skill set kind of fit? And I already went to school for communication and public speaking. I hadn't really done that much public speaking, but it kind of led me into the route of like video production. And so I was working at Microsoft. I'm doing different video production stuff for them. I'm on the camera sometimes. Sometimes I'm talent. I'm in front of the camera. But I was really just a kind of, for lack of a better word, a grunt. And I was just, going where people were putting me. But I was able to see like, oh, this is easy. Or, oh, they're doing this kind of inefficient. And like, oh, Microsoft has this whole building, like a whole complex just for like video production, and like I'm in the one little corner and I'm presenting them like, hey, look. And they're like, oh yeah, we're going live with that. That's exactly what we need. And I'm like, I'm not even utilizing all these skills. So what if I was able to hone this, do it for my own? So like I said, like first going on with the analyzing, just seeing the need. I also have homies probably like you, that grew up. I mean, I grew up in like Tacoma area, but guys that want to be rappers, guys that do art, ladies that, might sing, rap, or also do art. And I didn't have that skill, but I was definitely that hype man right beside him. And to be honest, I was thinking, how can I make like a hype man, like a real like life? Like how can I just be an all day
A
hype?
profession, yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
How can I be a hype man all day, man? Because I mean, for like, I feel like there's got to be a better like name than hype man, but there's no better hype man than like a guy like Flavor Flav, or like you think
Oh
about
yeah.
like DJ Jazzy Jeff and like people like that. And so I think with that, I leaned into the technical side of like, well, I can help with my homies with the video. I can help with coming up with some scenery. I can help with, maybe host an event that's going to feature the homies. So then
Mhm.
that's where I'm like gaining experience. So I was doing that for almost 2 years. And then I was, okay, I'm doing this. I'm out here live. I've kind of analyzed, I've looked at what I want to do, and now I'm going to take the experience and now I'm going to break it down to what worked, what didn't work. And I'm going to try to create my own out of that. you
Mhm.
know Even before that though, I had already gotten a sole proprietorship, got my business license, with no idea what I was going to use it for. But I was just like, let me just get the paperwork. Like I said, I'm real analytical. Let me get the paperwork so that somebody, Easton's like, hey Ish, man, I need you to make 32 t-shirts and sell them on the corner, and I got you, so we'll split it half. that I could be like, all right, I could, I
Mm-hmm.
have all the paperwork. I know how to do the taxes. I know how to do everything. And then as I was doing the kind of shows, variety shows, I did a couple comedy things. I was hosting, I was kind of all putting that under my sole proprietorship. And then I was just working and building almost like a portfolio, not so much for like, um, to present to anybody else, but for myself to then look back, analyze, and also for like the community. So, people start to know me for a certain thing. Hey, I know
Mm-hmm.
Ish, he's be around music. Oh, I know Ish, he be around podcasts or things like that. Even if, at first I did hop on, there was quite a few people that gave me opportunities before I knew anything about editing or anything, and they let me just edit their podcast, kind of thing like that. Then I was
Mm-hmm.
taking that experience and I was going to Microsoft and at my regular 9 to 5 job, and I was like, hey, what if we just edited this little presentation like this?
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, absolutely, let's put it out there. And I was like, wow, it's that easy, and this is kind of just freestyling. And then I kind of folded all that into the kind of like the Studio 143 entity.
How did COVID affect your business or your game plan for the future for your business?
I mean, for me, it was an absolute like gut punch. Not so much because of like, I was lucky enough not to get sick or have anybody close to me get sick or anything like that. But it was more of like what I was doing and what I was building up. My whole portfolio,
Mm-hmm.
like we talked about before, was live events,
Mm-hmm.
and you saw just like me, like right when COVID, it was at least a stop to that. And on an even more like personal level, as I was building up this portfolio, I was also doing the work and due diligence to present what I had been building to people. And I was actually in the middle of fundraising, in the first round of fundraising, so I could open up like a location for Studio
Mm-hmm.
143, which was kind of the epitome of the whole goal. So we had a goal of raising, I think, about 24,000. We had raised already 6,000, and so we're talking about like January, February of 2020. We had already
Mm-hmm.
raised 6,000. We just did a show in December and we raised some money for for a nonprofit in the Dominican Republic. So we were kind of on a roll. And then I actually had a presentation to some angel investors who actually wanted to give me 60,000 when I was only asking for 20,000 in that initial IPOC money. And they weren't even asking for nothing in return. They weren't even asking for like a return on investment. And I had already made up a whole ROI portfolio, how I was going to assure people's investment, how I could crowdfund it and get everybody their money back, but also build on their ideas, but also have people contribute, so Easton, he wants to contribute just off the strength of, Issues the homie. I had it set up that not only could you contribute, but as we got things open, hey, you want to have something where we could do, you know, dynamic workouts in the studio, yeah, we're gonna
Mm-hmm.
build it to to the people that invested in its mindset. And I feel like that was a fantastic community mindset. The angel investors love it. All my initial investors really did love it. And then boom, gut punch, COVID. And I actually remember being on a call with the angel investors after the initial call went so great. This is a follow up call. So basically, they're bringing on more people to potentially give me money. I'm literally
Mm-hmm.
talking about how, hey, I don't need that much money actually. Like I'm
Yeah,
actually trying to like,
yeah.
hey, I want to start small and build slow and build this
Mm-hmm.
foundation. And also I want to retain ownership. The more money you take, the more you're
Mm-hmm.
emboldened to them. So I was like, hey, if I can hit my goal like 24,000, that gets us started in the first 3 months. I can also use you guys maybe as a buffer zone. That sounds great to me. They were like, man, we love that. You're so humble. You kind of have an idea. You already have a lot of this financial structure already laid out and understood, which they were pretty impressed with. But then they were like, "But what are you about to do about COVID?" And this is February of 2020.
Yeah,
So I'm like, "Ha ha, yeah, I don't really know. I don't have
yeah.
a
Give it a few
plan.
weeks.
Yeah, I literally was like, hey, I think I had something planned for the end of February, like an event. And I was like, I got an event in February. Hopefully it can happen. I also
Mhm.
had a travel group. I was going to take a group of people out to the Dominican Republic, which was going to be dope. You know, which was another part of my entrepreneurship, and I was, you know, kind of doing a travel guide type of thing or whatever. And just introducing people to like places outside the country, but also, you know, tapping in with those local places. So I was doing all that, and so I was like, yeah, well, hopefully we can just wait and see. And they were like, yeah, you know, we're gonna wait and see. And then obviously, I think, what was it, like February 6th was like the first lockdown here
Mm-hmm.
in like Seattle area, and we were the
Oh
first place
yeah.
to lock down, and we
We
had
were
the first
early, yeah.
case. We had the first case, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
golly. And then, you know, we waited out a little bit more, and then it looked like they were going to be locked. We were going to be locked down all summer, you know, and then, you know, that was pretty much it for the fundraising. To be honest, that kind of halted it.
Mm-hmm.
And to be honest, you know, even though I didn't really have an answer for them, obviously, I'm not like down on myself for not having an answer to a global pandemic or whatever.
Yeah.
But I feel like, you know, I had enough of my like ducks laid out, and it was affirming to be like, yo, I have all this stuff. I'm presenting it. I'm
Mm-hmm.
raising money. I'm getting money. I got other people that they utilize their money to make money. Like they're investing to make money hand over fist, and they want to get involved with what I got going on just off the strength of my
Mm-hmm.
presentation. They hadn't even been to an
Yeah.
event or anything like that. They were just like, "You're
Wow.
really eloquent, young man.
Yeah,
Wow, listen to this. How
yeah.
old are
You
you again?"
speak
And I'm,
well.
"Yeah, you speak well." And I was like, "I'm like 27. You know, I'm ready to go." And they're like, "How do you even
Mm-hmm.
talk to the urban market?" And let me quick code switch and talk to a
Yeah.
leader real quick. And they were like, "Wow, that's fantastic. You know what I'm saying? We're ready to give you
uh,
$60,000 right now,
yeah.
sir." And I was like,
Oh
yo,
wow.
this is, you know, better than I can imagine. Just
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really affirming to at least that what was going on in my brain was
Mm-hmm.
being kind of verified. But in terms of like actually opening up the space, we did not get to open up the space. It's 2024 now. We put a
Mm-hmm.
pause on it. Any of the money that we had gotten early from like individual investors, so like a regular person like yourself, we had kind of just like, hey, you know, reach out. We don't know what's going on with live events. We're pausing everything we got going because our whole main thing was going to be to buy an event space or at least an event space in downtown Seattle. And we're going to use the money basically to get started. We had different income streams, but they were all around being live and in person. And so with the COVID kind of
Mm-hmm.
switching over to remote, I mean, we're actually still seeing the residuals. I mean, we're on
Mm-hmm.
kind of a remote camera right now on a pretty new service. I've worked with new services since then. You know, I actually worked in Microsoft Studios as they shifted over to move all their stuff to remote.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm live as the change is happening, and I'm kind of
Mm-hmm.
watching my dream deflate a little bit at the same time, which was pretty tough, man. I'm not gonna lie.
How much did you feel like you needed to adapt to the change of COVID with everything closing down and not being able to have live events? So how were you able to adjust with that? Obviously, you know, the space and stuff like that and investment, but other ways that you were able to adjust positively.
I mean, for on the positive tip, since I was right there, like live, like I was still working at Microsoft in the production studio, I was able to get a webcasting a job. So basically, I'm the person that would coordinate a live stream like this. You know, if there's captions or anything like that. So I basically went back to the beginning. Let me just go back from the ground up, learn how maybe some of this remote stuff is gonna work and grow, and you know, kind of just do that as a 9 to 5, kind of rebuild it. And then also let me start thinking about, you know, what if a tornado hits? How can my business survive that? What if, you know, there's a long-term economic crisis? How can my business survive that? And start doing that. And I'm honestly still in that process.
Mm-hmm.
You know, me and Katarina, we got quite a bit of ideas, and I know for my own like entrepreneurs like spirit, I got endless ideas, man. The first time I tried to start a business was the day I graduated. I went to the bank. So I
Mm-hmm.
graduated Central Washington, went to the bank, and I was like, yo, give me, I think I said, give me, how much? I think I said 80,000. I was like, give me 80,000. I'm about to buy a bunch of vending machines. I already know where I'm about to put them. Look at the return on investment. I had a whole breakdown. I literally treated it like it was like a college project, and I just went to the
Mm-hmm.
bank with it. But the bank was like, you ain't got no money. You ain't got no credit. You know what
Right.
I'm saying? You just graduated. You ain't even got a job. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
But what's funny was I'm sitting there with the loan officer, and he was like looking at the like paperwork that I presented, which was, I guess, more than, they just wanted me to fill out a loan application. I was like, yeah, but let's
Mm-hmm.
look at the viability of this business model. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm
Yeah.
coming right out of a business philosophy class. I'm like, yeah, let me get this presentation going. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking to him, I'm sitting with him, and he's looking at me. He's like, hold on, man. And he literally looked at me and was like, yo, can I take this? I was like, sir, what? I was like, nah, man. He was like, oh, I was just wondering if I could maybe have your permission to utilize this plan. I was like,
Mm.
absolutely not. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
exactly. It's my plan.
It's literally my plan, you know what I'm saying? And I know, like, in a legal sense, he has to ask, since I'm presenting to him at
Mm-hmm.
like a business, like as his job as a loan officer. So he can't
Mm-hmm.
just be like, hey, I saw this guy's work and just use it, because then he would be opening himself up. Honestly, if he used it,
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't really care. It's not that big of
Mm-hmm.
a deal. But I'm just saying that to say, like, I got plenty of ideas on how to like make money or coming up. But to be honest, my main focus was so locked in with the live events, and I feel like that's such a, how do I say, like, it's just like an expression of like who I am. I feel like, that
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I was more focused on just retooling, like I said, learning some more of the technical side of things, learning, okay, what does a webcast look like? Also being patient, which was a huge thing. Let me just be patient. Let me see when the lockdowns are over. Let me see
Mm-hmm.
how things bounce back from, like, economics. Obviously I know I got the presentation. Obviously I know I got the ideas. Obviously I
Mm-hmm.
know I could raise money, and that wasn't my first time raising money. I had raised money for charity work, raised quite a bit of money doing that. So I know, I'm like, okay, I could, generate money if I need to generate money. But really, how
Mm-hmm.
could I make a business that could like actually survive? And I mean, I don't know, like, if you know the stats, but most businesses die out in the first 2 years, and it's usually
Mm-hmm.
because of like uh, uh, um, cash flow problems. You don't have to, the money
Mm-hmm.
coming in is less than what's going out. Usually people are utilizing their own, like, their last personal dollar to kind of get through those stages. And that's usually,
Mm-hmm.
in about 2 years, they can't do it no more. And so,
Yeah.
seeing that I did have a pretty good start, pretty good run, and I did have some other things in the fire, it was just about, hey, let me just be still, regroup, refocus, you know what I'm saying? Basically do what kind of the lockdowns kind of forced on all of us, which is sit on your, you know what I'm saying, for lack
Mm-hmm.
of better word, you know what I'm saying? Like, relax. And so I think
Yeah.
that was a positive, though, because I just think, patience is definitely, sometimes there's a certain timing for everything.
And I think that's what works well is having a solid game plan because, if something doesn't work out or something happens like COVID, you still can go back to that game plan because it works. You've seen it firsthand. So, one thing I did want to ask is for somebody who's just starting, and now obviously you're a little bit different because you are versatile in so many different realms. What type of advice would you give to somebody who's starting out in just maybe like pop-up events or trying to start coordinating events or anything like that? What type of advice would you give to somebody?
I mean, honestly, I'll probably give the advice that I probably need to give to myself is like, lean into your strengths.
Mm-hmm.
Lean into your strengths, and like,
Mm-hmm.
stay ready so you don't gotta get ready. I feel like that old uncle that gotta say, hey, come on, young fella,
Yeah.
stay ready. So you don't got, but it's really true. There was a lot of
Mm-hmm.
opportunities where, you know, maybe like, I feel like, honestly, my whole life, people are like, man, what do you even do, man? I see you doing all kinds of
Mm.
stuff. What do you even do?
Yeah,
And
seriously. I
there,
think I've asked you that before.
it, I think you have, I think you have. And honestly, I'd be ready with an answer. I'd be like, oh, actually, this is
Mm-hmm.
what I'm working on right now. Here's actually a
Mm-hmm.
detailed list of the things you want to, hey, are you looking to fun? Are you looking to participate? Are you looking just to enjoy and entertain? This is what I got for
Mm-hmm.
you. When I feel like early on, I kind of was like, oh man, I'm just ish, man. I just do my own thing, kind of thing like that, and just taking, so what I'm kind of getting at with the advice is like taking the time to define the thing that you're on, and maybe, or even be defined by the process, kind of how we were talking about before.
Mm-hmm.
Take that time to define the thing, and then take the steps that are needed. So if it's like, hey man, I know I'm gonna be heavy on the corporate world, go get your suits,
Mm-hmm.
man. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna do
Mm-hmm.
this. make sure you got the suits. Don't wait until you get the corporate job to then get your suit. It's kind of what I'm getting
Mm,
at when I'm saying like
mm,
stay ready so you don't have to get ready. It's like if you kind of have the vision of something, if you want to be a voice actor or whatever, man, drink your
mm.
tea before you know, get your you know what I mean? Like just stay ready and like do those things. Get your sleep, get your you know what I mean, get the food
Mhm,
intake that you need and like do all those things. Get your LLC or sole proprietorship or get some mentorship like you kind of were alluding to before.
mhm,
Definitely something if I went back, you know, and like
mm,
wanted like to do it again, I would probably look for a little bit more mentorship. I definitely was,
mm,
you know, not for like lack of confidence or anything, but I was definitely out there shooting from the hip, you know,
mm,
and it
mm,
definitely worked out to me up to a point. And that's kind of
mhm,
where I feel like having a mentor, having somebody that maybe waded the waters or kind of already has it maybe even set out a path and maybe even has some rest stops on the way, you know,
mhm,
somebody that could really guide. I think that would be huge, but to be honest, that's pretty hard to find, man. I don't know about you,
mhm,
like in terms of finding mentorship. I definitely was actively seeking it in the
mhm,
2017 2018 time, and
mhm,
you know I wasn't really getting the response back that I hope for. And so, you know, me being me,
mhm.
I'm like, oh, whatever, I'm gonna just figure it out,
Yeah.
which is works for some people, but you know, I would be remiss if I said that's the good strategy. Just go try to figure it
Mm,
out. I don't
mhm,
think so. I think finding a mentor is huge, and or even like a mentoring organization, you know, stuff like
mm,
that.
mhm,
If
mhm,
you seek it, you'll definitely find it. So I definitely think that's the advice. Have a mentor and like stay ready so you don't have to get ready and lean into your strengths. So it'd be those three that I would say as like advice for somebody that was just trying to start out or I got a 9 to 5, but I do want to start hustling, you know?
mhm, mhm. I like that a lot, and I think that's going to be beneficial for people who are listening because I think, especially starting something on your own, there's a lot of little elements to it, and like having a mentor who's actually going to help you and finding that right person who wants to help you. Because, like you said yourself, like when I started for personal training, I reached out to 20 personal trainers,
You know?
maybe one reached back. And it's like, man, I ain't trying to steal your clients. I ain't
Yeah.
trying to eat off your plate. Like,
See, that's only,
I just want some mentorship. So I
yeah.
totally understand what you're saying from that. Real quick, just to go over a few things before we finish this up. How do you stay motivated? Because I know it's tough doing stuff on your own and being able to find things and things possibly not working out. What keeps you motivated during those times?
I mean, I think that's a good question. I mean, I feel like I've never really had too much a problem with like self esteem. Like I feel like I've
Mm,
always had pretty big confidence, kind of thing like that. But I feel like, you know, just like laying the foundation, analyzing and looking at the business, I was also thinking like, okay, how can I preserve myself if I want to be the president of this company? If I want to
mm,
also still do, you know, be like a live tour guide and a producer and you know, and all those things, how can I preserve that? And so for me, it's really about like, you know, like breathing techniques. I do a lot of like breathing
mm,
techniques and like meditation. And then like I just try to keep my like self-talk in
mm,
control. It's actually a question I was gonna ask you, man. My self-talk sounds a lot like a coach in my head. So it's really cool to
mm.
be like, that's not enough. You got more. You got
Yeah.
more. Go out there and get it. Or it's really like, you know, and so that actually does motivate me. And I've definitely found myself if I'm getting down,
Mm,
kind of being like, you know, gathering myself into my own self again and then kind of going
mm,
back into that self-talk that's like real coach heavy. But then
mm,
also I think like in terms of external motivation, I feel like community is super motivating to me. I like putting people on. I like, you know, collaborating with people. I like collaborating with people that look like me, talk like me, act like me, people that I would hang out with regularly. I really enjoy like people in general. And I feel like that's a huge motivator for me, and that's kind of what I meant earlier when I was like, I need to lean into my own strengths or lean into my
mm,
own advice by being more collaborative. I feel like sometimes when you don't reach your goals as you maybe have out or stated them, or at least for me, I tend to
mm,
isolate and be like, all right, now I got to cook it back up. You know what I'm saying?
mm,
But in all realities, like stuff like this, connecting with you, you know,
mm.
connecting with, you know, Marsh, connecting with other people that I know are hustling is actually what opens the doors up.
I totally agree. I think building that community and wanting to build each other up and not break each other down, because I think that's extremely important in our community. And I think just any positive person who's bringing anything positive to the community is huge in itself. So I commend you for that. Is there anything currently that you're working on that you want to talk about, or kind of keep it under wraps for the time being?
I
Or
mean, I'm pretty under wraps right now. I do got some
yeah.
stuff I'm working on, but I'm kind of in rebuild mode, to be honest. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of switched up some of my 9 to 5s, still pursuing to try to do some account specialist work and some producer work. Uh, um, and you're right. Like right now, I'm really just stacking right now, and I'm really like cooking
Mm-hmm.
up. But in terms of like, where you could kind of, if you want to follow the journey, I do got Ishmael Stinson. You can always check out, or get in contact with me. I'm definitely pretty active on Instagram. I think it's studio_143_primed is our business page. We haven't been on there too active, but you can see a lot of the foundational work that we
Mm.
kind of put in and kind of the vision. If you ever want to check that out. But in terms of something coming, man, in December, man, I might have to turn to a rapper, man. I'm not gonna lie.
Okay.
I might have to turn to
Okay.
a rapper. Like I said, I might have to lean into my strength. I heard somebody rapping the other day, and I was like, man, he's garbage, man. I got way more bars than him. And I
Man,
was
I hear something every day. I'm like, how did they make it?
you know and honestly, the rapping really wouldn't even be for like I want to blow up as a rapper, but it would just be
Mhm.
another way to reach out, another way to
Yeah.
get yourself out there. And also too, for me, music has always been, and we talked about motivation, a super
Mhm.
motivator. So if I could talk to myself on a song and play that 3,000 times,
Yeah.
that might be what it takes to get to the next level, So,
Yeah,
see,
for
that's a
sure.
sneak peek. I ain't even let that out. That's out the bag.
Mm.
First, you heard it here first on Hustler's Handbook, man. Look out for my album, man. But I'm gonna do a Mike Jones move and just go by my first and last, man. I'm gonna just do a straight Mike
Okay.
Jones.
Okay, that's what's up, man. That's what's up. And like I said, man, I love your grind. That's one thing about you is you're always on something, and I think that's one thing a few people that I've interviewed, it's like don't put yourself in that box. I think once you go to school and you're like, oh, I'm going to school to be a teacher, so that's all I'm going to do is teach, and it's like you're already putting yourself in that tunnel vision, and there's so many avenues you can pursue and not just be that one person. And I think that's something that a trait that most people don't generally have. And I feel like athletes like ourselves are pretty good
Yeah,
at that, multitasking, knowing
yeah.
to adapt and how to adjust. And so it's really cool to see what you're doing, man.
Absolutely, but as athletes too, I do think it's tough to adjust to like like what you're saying, like when you're saying put people in a box. To me, I always call that the fast track to the matrix, man. Like, don't put yourself on
Mm,
the fast track to the matrix. And what I mean by that is like when you do put yourself in a box, it seems like the outside world or other things can pull you, where you're gonna go. Hey,
mm,
teachers only do this. Teachers
mm,
only act like this, and like that
mm,
pressure and that is pretty real. I
mm,
think in terms of like how much it can influence you. And so for me, yeah, like staying like outside the box. But again, that goes back to the first thing I said, like lean into your strengths as an athlete. I do think that transition was tough, especially like going into the corporate world and being, and
mm,
they're pretty much like, hey man, what's your expectations? How many years of sales data can you show me?
mm,
Kind of thing like that.
yeah.
Versus, whereas like playing football, coach is like, hey, Easton, I know you're playing linebacker, but we need you to come and play a little safety. You're
Mm,
like, what's up? I'm ready, man.
yeah.
I'm ready.
Yep, let's do it.
Let's do it. I've been itching to get
Mm,
a little bit more
mm,
running room to take these running backs
mm.
out, kind of thing like that. Or me playing
Yeah.
running back and they're like, oh, we got this play. We're going to motion you out to wide receiver. I already been working on my stance, coach. Coach, I
Yep,
already
right.
been working on my receiver. And that's how it was at practice, too.
Yeah,
People were
for sure.
itching to be able to show everything that they had. And I do think, to
Hmm.
your point about not boxing yourself in, I do think it's important to kind of like lean into all your strength and all yourself. And to me also too, even though I would definitely consider myself like a hustler entrepreneur, I really
Hmm.
wouldn't define myself by how I make money, in any
Hmm.
sense in any sense of anything. And I think
Hmm.
that has also kind of shined through in all the things that I've been involved with.
Hmm. Most definitely. I mean, you're passionate about it and it shows. So I think that being passionate about anything, even if it's multiple things, as long as you're going all in full force, you're going to be successful in it. So I want to thank you again for joining the podcast. And do you have anything else you would like to add, or any other gems or knowledge that you'd like to give to our guests?
I'm trying to think if I can think of a story, man. Oh, no, I do got a gym, man. I got a
Mm-hmm.
play that, I mean, especially people that think like or look like us or where we're from. Like I'm from Tacoma, been in
Mm-hmm.
like Tacoma, Seattle area pretty much my whole life. Uh, uh, but you got to get out the country, man. That's one
Mm-hmm.
thing that I did in 2018 was I went out the country and I was trying to do business out the country. So I'm not trying to do business out of the country in another language, which the same analyze strategy, analyze, introduce, implement. I was doing that out the country. So, first I had to like, hey, where can I make some money? Okay, cool. How do I need to make money? I need to get a bank account outside the country. I need to
Mm-hmm.
get, tapped in with a lawyer and stuff like that. Or maybe here, you need two lawyers because you need one for that side and then your side and stuff like that. Or,
Mm-hmm.
maybe in like, in Mexico, if you have this prepared, you could do this with your American business or thing like that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is something that I feel like us as Americans, or maybe it's just being way up here in the Northwest, that's untapped potential, man. That's
Mm-hmm.
definitely untapped potential. I mean, I actually I want to hear that story. I don't think I even told nobody this, man. But like, so at the same time, I'm coming with the studio idea. I'm also trying to come up with my own idea, my own independent like tour guide company. So basically, I want to
Oh,
take people
okay.
out of the country, you know, and I had a flow chart for all this, how it all went together. I know it sounds like I'm like, bro, this guy was a tour guide too. Come on, man, what the heck? But I had a literal flow chart. I might break down the flow chart. I might need to put it on the screen. But
Yeah.
so I was trying to do kind of like tour guides, and I had and to back to your point about passion, I just had such a great time leaving the country. I was like,
Mm,
and when I first started traveling, I was traveling by myself. So
mm,
I had friends that just happened to be in other countries that I met here in the States, and I just went to go see them, stuff like that. I wasn't
oh,
really going to vacation destinations. I think I went to my first resort like a year and a half ago. You know
oh,
what I'm
wow.
saying? So I'm traveling a
Mm.
lot. I'm not. As soon as I go in the hotel, I'm dapping the dude that's grabbing my bag, and I'm like, man, where's it going down at, man?
Yeah,
How do I get out of here?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying? How do
Yeah.
I get out of this area? And so I had so much, enjoyment out of traveling. Then with I kind of have like more of like a community church giving back
Mm,
background. I was also doing some giving back in Mexico and in the DR. And then I was basically was like, wait, this is a great formula. I just had a great time. How about I introduce the same thing to other people that I know haven't been nowhere, don't have their passport,
mm,
and they can come along with me. So I was doing that
mm.
as well. And I had done 3 trips in 2019, I think. Three
Oh,
trips
wow.
in 2019. The largest group I had, I think, was 8. There was 8 of us.
Oh, dang. Okay.
And we had my homegirl from New York. She met up with us. Had another homegirl from Atlanta. My sister came from Atlanta as well. My cousin was on the trip, and 2 other guys I played football with at Central Washington all came out. And then one of my friends, her friends, came out. I organized the whole thing. I booked the whole thing, and this is another thing where uh, um, I feel like I could book it for myself, so why can't I book it for 6
Mm.
people? What's the difference?
Yeah.
You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying? Like, and so I definitely didn't have that experience, but I did that. We went out the country. I set it up. It was like a 7-day thing. We hit different
Mm,
cities. I basically recreated some of the feelings that I had. Then we ended up
mm.
spending like 2 days giving back, like deep, deep, deep in the community.
Wow.
And so that was something I was working on the side. I already done 4 of those. I was also doing it. I had groups coming from Germany. There was a lot of people
Wow.
from Germany, and they were in the 18 to 20 range, and they were like, "Oh yeah, we're going
Mm.
on gap year," post,
Yeah.
and they had this money already saved up and set aside for this.
Hmm.
Pretty much what I was explaining. Yeah, come to the DR, help
Wow.
out, maybe for a week, go to resort
Hmm.
for 2 weekends, and then come back and help out some more stuff like that. So I had
Yeah.
been involved with that, and I actually had that same February, I had a meeting with a tour guide company in Mexico that wanted to branch out and have a business in Dominican Republic, with me on the lead of that. And so this is pre-COVID, you know what I'm saying? I didn't really tell nobody this because it never really materialized anything. But to me, in terms of our conversation, it just was one of those things that was like, everything's coming together. The passion, the opportunity, the preparedness, obviously not the global pandemonium, but everything else was coming together. And they actually presented it to me. I think it was like, I first talked with the owner's daughter, who was friends with one of my friends who had just seen one of my videos. Another thing where it's just like, it just happened,
Yeah, man.
and was just like, hey, yeah, my dad owns one of the largest tour companies in Mexico. I just wanted to talk to you. We had that conversation in January. Then we had the follow-up meeting in February. But obviously with COVID, we never materialized. But that was another situation where they were like, oh, are you ready to do business in the DR? Like, how can we do? I already was ready for that. I was like, oh, this is exactly how we do the transfer. I actually already got the bank account. I'm actually going to probably end up opening a couple other bank accounts. So, we have it covered, Visa, Discover, MasterCard, whatever we're doing, ready to go. They had a lot of infrastructure in Mexico and around other parts of the Gulf of Mexico. They wanted to add in the DR and the Caribbean. And honestly, that was one of those ideas where I felt like if the timing would have been maybe 2 years earlier or 2 years later, bro, you know what I'm saying?
Perfect.
It would have been perfect. And I would be on a beach right now doing the same interview with my dad. You know what I'm saying? We're talking about, as a hustler, you just got to stay down till you come up, which is still the mentality that I'm on. But, that just shows another opportunity where I was prepared. And even though it didn't materialize like I maybe wanted with a lot of things outside of my control, it definitely was affirming to be prepared for the opportunity, to be presented an opportunity. And I was ready to grab it, if you know what I mean.
Some people will have those opportunities and think it's too good to be true and then skip out on it. It's like, oh, no, I'm too comfortable in my current situation. Instead of taking that leap, that could potentially help them in the long run. So that's huge. But damn, like COVID, anybody was trying to make a business, it affected a lot of people, obviously.
It knocked down a lot of trees, if you know what I'm saying, for analogy where, you might have been, planted something, watching the seed grow, and it kind of just came and washed it away.
You keep that motivation though, and obviously everybody had a downtime during that. And I think it was a reset for everybody, and depending on where you wanted to pursue that avenue, I'm sure a lot of people, I feel like everybody was starting to be a TikToker and making up dance. Like everybody had to find some sort of outlet, and the people who were persistent and kept going.
I wasn't dancing. I wasn't shaking my booty on the video. Okay, I feel you that people was doing it. You're right.
Yeah,
but
everybody's trying to find that avenue.
Did you get that low? I know you got a wife.
No.
Dance. You might have to hit a. Come on, man.
I was two-stepping with babies on the way, so
I feel that. I like that.
Yeah. Like I said, again, man, thanks for coming on and sharing your story and telling everybody, great information, man. And that's the thing, like, you truly are a hustler. And I think that's why I had to have you on here, man, because you are the epitome of somebody who grinds it out and does what they're supposed to do to get where they need to be. So I do appreciate you coming on, man.
I appreciate you, Easton, man. That means a lot, man. You know what I'm saying? I definitely, I don't know if I would even think, call myself a entrepreneur at first, but then when I get affirmed and, people are like, oh man, I see what you're doing. That just means a lot. Definitely is a esteem booster at minimum. And it's, it's honestly a huge blessing at maximum, just because, stuff like that is, for me, that's like cares about community. That's what keeps me going. So I really appreciate that.
Yeah, definitely, brother. We got to take care of each other for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, everybody check out Ish. Like I said, I'll tag everything in here. And it's been an honor listening and getting all that information from me, brother. It means a lot.
Appreciate it. I hope so. Hustler out there. You already know.
Thanks for tuning in to the Hustler's Handbook podcast. I hope you found today's episode as inspiring and insightful as I did. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with your fellow hustlers. Keep pushing, keep striving, and remember, the hustle never stops. See you next time.